Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm just relaxing on the deck right now because I've been working pretty hard inside. I've been working on our flooring project, putting down these vinyl plank flooring deals they're pretty cool. I mean, they fit together pretty well, but they do have pretty tight tolerances, so it can be pretty frustrating. So decided to take a break, and since I'm taking a break, we might as well do a little story time, because I usually do just fishing tips, tricks on this channel, but I've got a lot of really cool stories over the years. So this particular story is about a tournament that was very formative. It boosted me financially, it boosted my confidence, but it also taught me a lot about working and communicating with co-anglers, which is a really important skill when you're fishing, any tournament that has you have a partner or a co-angler. And so let me set the kind of the scene for you. So at the time, it was 2012. I was still fishing, going to college, University of Central Florida, down in Florida. I was living in a little travel trailer at the time and fishing a lot of different BFLs in Florida, and also the FLW college fishing circuit. Now, I also fished like the Boat US National Championship, and actually won the championship with my buddy Casey O'Donnell the year before in 2011. And so that was a very formative tournament too, but that's for another story time. But I was at that particular moment in time, I was up in North Carolina practicing for another tournament. And just like all the rest of my college years, the only time that I ended up having a little bit of money is if I won a tournament or, just got back from Alaska. And at this point in time, I was pretty low on funds. So, all throughout college, I was constantly, just living off of whatever was left on my credit cards or I was living really thin, but my overhead was also pretty low. I didn't have a whole lot of things that I needed to pay for, small truck payment and things like that. But anyways, I'm up here in North Carolina at Lake Wylie, so practicing for the upcoming FLW College championship, regional championship on Lake Wylie. I think some nice people ended up letting me stay at their apartment up there, which was very, very gracious. And I mean, sleeping in the back of your truck during the middle of the summer is not fun. So I was really appreciative of them for that. And so I was out there practicing, ended up having some engine problems on Lake Wylie, and found the shop. And Parks Jones was the name of the guy that owned the shop. He is a well-known tournament angler and also Mercury, mechanic. And I think he's just a overall boat hobbyist, but great dude. He ended up, helping me out big time. I still had to pay for parts, but I can't remember exactly what had gone wrong, but it was substantial enough to really clean me out, financially. I had just a few $100 left. Well, maybe like $500. I think it was after a trip to Alaska, so I still probably had some money left over even after making that repair, but still not very much. And I was starting to think about, like, man, maybe I should find a job up here, like washing dishes or something in North Carolina while I was up there, because I was pretty much just going to live there until the college championship, because I couldn't afford to drive back down to Florida and then back up. So I'm thinking about like finding a job or something to make some money. But then I asked Parks, I was like, hey, are there any tournaments coming up? Because at that time, I mean, that's a big part of my income was fishing tournaments and having a fairly regular success as far as consistency. I hadn't won a lot of tournaments, but I had actually been making a good amount of checks. And so I decided to ask if there's any tournaments, and there just so happened to be a two-day BFL on High Rock Lake. And I was like, I'm in. So I took whatever money I had left over to pay the entry fee, the $300 to enter that 2-day super tournament, and traveled over to High Rock, slept in the back of my truck at a campground like I normally do. I think that's what I ended up doing, and started practicing. I had like a day and a half to practice for this tournament. Never been to High Rock Lake before, don't know anything about it, and instantly landed on a good pattern. Like it was easy for me to catch fish, and there were big fish too. I was fishing these docks in this one creek. I can't tell you the name of the creek. I could point it out on a map, but I was fishing this dock pattern, and I even told my now wife, but at the time she was barely my girlfriend. I told her on the phone, I was just like, I feel really good about catching fish, but I'm sure everybody else is catching fish, because when you're catching them so easily, you always think, gosh, everybody must be catching them. So, I was my optimism was tempered, to say the least, going into the tournament. But so I ended up fishing the first day. Things went well. I was like, man, I had a decent like mid upper teens bag or something like that, and ended up finishing in the top 10, maybe even the top 5 or something like that. May have even been as high as like third or second or something. I can't remember exactly where I was after the first day, but I was really confident, after that first day, because I was like, guys didn't catch them as good as I thought, and this pattern's actually pretty solid. So the next day, I ended up linking up with my co-angler that night, told him, that we're fishing docks, we're fishing them very quickly, so try not to bring any slow-moving techniques. And, of course, the next morning, as a co-angler, you can only, you ask your boater what you're going to be doing, but you have to also be prepared for the boater not exactly telling the truth or end up doing something different. So you got to be prepared for anything, especially the techniques that you're more confident in. And I told him straight up exactly what we were doing, the exact baits that I was throwing, because I didn't want him to get stuck with a bunch of slow-moving techniques that weren't going to work, and he'd be frustrated. But anyways, he ended up showing up the next morning, lots of spinning rods, lots of things like drop shots and things like that I knew were going to be a real challenge on this, fishing in this manner. And so anyways, I forget about it, and we just start fishing. And I remember this one line of docks, I was coming up to a dock that was really one of my best docks on that stretch. And I remember he's throwing a drop shot, and casting towards like the walkways on the docks, and I remember he set the hook, missed a fish, and he asked me to stop for a second. I didn't have power poles or anything like that at the time. Stop so he could make another cast. Well, the dock in front of me was a very, very important dock to me, so I didn't want to turn the trolling motor around, make a bunch of racket, and backwash that dock. So what I did was just took my foot off the throttle on the trolling motor, and we still had forward momentum, but it definitely slowed down, and I thought that would be good enough. Well, fished that line of docks, didn't catch anything, and it turned out that it wasn't good enough. He thought that I wasn't giving him a good enough opportunity to make a follow-up cast. And so that's fine. The last thing I want to do is make somebody feel like I'm backseating them or something like that. And so we communicated, we talked about it, and we came to an agreement. I said, the reason why that happened was because I had a dock in front of me. If there wasn't another dock that I was interested in casting at, I would have turned that trolling motor around and stopped the boat completely. But that was the reason why I just took my foot off the trolling motor and we still coast a little bit. So I agreed that in the next situation, if we have a similar scenario, is that if he communicates with me, I'll go ahead, fish that next following dock, and then we will turn around and I'll allow him to get another solid cast or two at a fish that he missed. So that was our agreement from then on, and we were totally solid from there. And it was a great opportunity to communicate with him and to de-escalate, a situation where he was getting a little bit frustrated with me. So from then on, we were solid, and I ended up going out. We had some good, good karma from our conversation and our agreement, and I ended up catching like 18.5 pounds very quickly. He ran into a couple lines of docks that were just loaded, and so we crushed them. And then, I was starting to get real excited. I got a good bag. I'm like, I got a shot at winning this thing. And I was just like, I still feel bad about this morning with the whole, missing a fish thing. And so my co-angler hadn't got a fish at that point. So I was just like, all right, I'm going to bring you to a stretch that I know you can get a bite, but you have to throw the bait that I tell you and throw it and fish it exactly how I tell you. No, I'm not exaggerating when I say the first dock that we came to, he ended up making the first cast with the swim jig that I gave him. It was kind of a bad cast, a little bit too far to the side, but he reeled it back in, made another cast. I was like, perfect. He nails it. He catches a fish on that exact cast. And so he was super stoked on that. And I think we fished the rest of that line of docks and either caught one or two. I can't remember exactly what he ended up catching, but I put my rods down for like 30 minutes or so. And then finally, after, I felt like I kind of made up for, that instance in the morning, I picked up my rods again, went back to another stretch of docks that I was waiting to fish, and ended up just crushing them again. Ended up losing a 6 or 7 pounder on a swim bait, a hollow body swim bait, and ended up catching another big one. I can't remember how big it was, but ended up culling up to, I think it was between 21 or 23 and a half. I can't remember exact numbers, but it was like a really good bag of fish, and ended up winning that tournament. So I ended up going to a lake that I'd never been to before in my life, had no information on it at all. Ended up putting down my rod during the second day of the tournament for a little bit of time so my co-angler could catch a fish, and ended up just absolutely obliterating the fish and winning a tournament that I just out of nowhere decided to fish to make a little bit of money. And so it ended up boosting me financially, confidence-wise. We ended up making the top 5 in that FLW College Championship. I think it was a few weeks later. And I ended up staying in a hotel that night with some air conditioning. And that is still a tournament that guys from North Carolina talk about all the time. They bring it up whenever I see them. It was really cool to be able to learn how to communicate with that co-angler. Ever since every time I bump into him, we talk about it, laugh about it. And so it was a really good opportunity for me to learn how to communicate with a co-angler in an instance that wasn't ideal. But overall, man, that was a very, very important tournament to me. And again, it still comes up all the time. People still talk about that kid that came up to High Rock that had never been there before, and put a little bit of a whooping on the local guys. But anyways, I love that. I love that memory, and so I figured I'd share it with you today. So let me know what you think about this story in the comment section below. Would you have put down your rod during a tournament to help your co-angler? I've never done it. I didn't do it before, and I've never done it since. But in that situation, I ended up feeling like I needed to make sure that I felt good inside, that I had some good karma. But anyways, it is getting cold out here. I'm starting to shake. And so I'm going to head back inside. But thank you guys very much for watching. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. I'll see you out on the water.